Hello everyone and welcome to Kaya Thinks Film. Today I wanted to look at the works of Christopher Nolan and the themes that have made him who he is, and also of course how that led into the Odyssey and how it is a reflection of all the works that have gone prior. Christopher Nolan is undoubtedly one of the most influential directors of the 21st century. He's a juggernaut and a pioneer all rolled into one, but how did he get here and what actually makes him such a great and well-renowned filmmaker? Beginning in 1998 with his debut feature Following, Christopher Nolan showed his interest in experimenting and using non-linear storytelling and time as a general theme, whether timelines converge as the runtime progresses or entire films play backwards. He's had various reactions over the years to his uses of time. Tenet was slated by many due to its inapproachable and often arduous plot, which flip-flopped time as we know it repeatedly. Memento, on the other hand, is regularly seen as the then auteur's big break. While it does have its disapprovers, again in terms of how difficult it can be to keep up with, it does have overall an awful lot of praise and is very well regarded. Although a lot of that praise off the back of a complicated story is often given to the world-class finale. Speaking in New York, Nolan was actually asked about his fascination of time and he presented it quite plainly, saying it's the most fundamental part of our human experience. And to be honest, that's hard to argue against. Everybody does experience time. And it can't be denied that when showcased at the heights of something like Interstellar, time can be showcased in some tremendous ways. In the present day, Christopher Nolan is largely known for having his soul bonded more or less to IMAX and constantly using technology to develop audiences' hankerings for a big screen cinema experience, and that's something I personally really commend. Starting with a screen test with The Prestige in 2006, Nolan's use of IMAX has increased gradually from The Dark Knight onwards, and his adoption of this format has paid dividends in an era where small screen film watching and streaming services have really boomed. I don't think anything shows his love for cinema and the big screen experience more than his split from Warner Bros. After the release of Tenet, where he said their interest in the streaming world and cutting of a lot of cinema screenings, even though it was during COVID, was too much, and he therefore parted with a company he'd been working with for an awful long time. However, Christopher Nolan hasn't been without his criticisms over the years. Women overwhelmingly play second fiddle in his works. If you want to see an exception to the rule, I'd highly recommend watching his adaptation of Insomnia. Not coincidentally, I'm sure the only film he doesn't actually have a writing credit on. And many had hoped going into the Odyssey that Anne Hathaway's Penelope would be given her flowers and given a big role for a woman with nuance and depth that we haven't seen previously from the director. And that maybe, just maybe, it can birth a more inclusive age of Nolan films. Keeping along the political lines though, Nolan's films are often seen as being quite right-wing, with pro-imperialist and pro-establishment sentiments going in tandem with his preference to go against the anarchist types. On a more technical note, however, his biggest weakness is almost unanimously seen as his use of sound and sound mixing. While Dunkirk actually took home the Oscar for that category, many see it as an assault on the ears, with also some of the dialogue being completely inaudible, which is similar to The Dark Knight Rises with Tom Hardy's Bane character. And then we come to what is, I'm sure, Christopher Nolan's favourite project to date, shot entirely on IMAX and with audible dialogue. The Odyssey is beyond a box-ticking exercise. I personally believed on first watch that its representation of women through Anne Hathaway and Lupita Nyong'o's characters were really strong, I do still see issues with Penelope and with her being kind of just an anchor for Odysseus and a fuel to get back home, although I do still think he does a pretty good job, definitely a far better one than we've seen since Insomnia. The bar is quite low, but in that regard I'll give him his flowers, but understand that there's still room for improvement. It delivers great scale, tremendous excitement, and has the essence of the massive audience beckoners of the 20th century. Christopher Nolan is certainly not a perfect director, but his ability to constantly develop and branch out while still keeping his strongest interests at the heart of his projects is really impressive and something to commend, and no doubt what has clearly etched him into cinematic history. Looking forward to his next project, which has a rumoured release of July 2029. It seems like the director is going towards horror, which I'm extremely excited for. Not only in The Odyssey did we see some brilliant practical effects and things that I genuinely found were really visceral and definitely very impressive with the lack of CGI or its usage to kind of just smooth some things over. I think horror could be an incredible direction for him. There's also a lot of excitement in the fact that horror has the ability to send some brilliant messages, and I think it's the best genre for social commentary. Of course, there's a lot of history with how women are treated with themes like the vamp and the final girl, and to see how Nolan might adapt on these, seeing as I think he does take into account criticisms and improvements that audiences have given him over the years. I really hope he does something great with it. And again, thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you again soon.